Hello, and my name is Cruickshank, and I work with the Behaviour Insights team. I've recently been approached by the Good Grief Trust, a charitable organisation aimed to help all those dealing with grief. The problem they face is that many of the bereaved approaching them are struggling to move on with their lives and are suffering from loneliness, which can lead to damaging side effects. My research began with wanting to discover why the bereaved tend to act this way. A source I found explains how emotional isolation is when a person feels they have no one they can talk to or confide in. Emotionally isolated individuals may evolve to a point where they keep their feelings to themselves, or they feel totally despondent about communicating with others or receiving their emotional support. One might be emotionally isolated despite having friends and family because they keep their relationships on a superficial level. In this way, they might be surrounded by people, yet they still feel lonely and unable to relate or bond with others. This form of loneliness relates to grieving for the emotionally isolated individuals confided in the person that they'd recently lost. Therefore, they struggle to connect with others, as from their perspective, others will never match the person that they have lost. A quote I discovered seemed to sum up this concept rather nicely. Primarily, the fact that what you desire is your loved one, and what you have is an emptiness moulded so precisely to your loved one's likeness that no one else could ever fill it. Not talking to others and emotionally isolating whilst grieving can develop into mentally damaging risks such as depression. Research also shows the possibility of the bereaved failing to look after themselves, or even worse, suicide. After creating an understanding of the bereaved, I then began researching a more defined audience. This allowed me to discover 30% of adults aged 45 to 54 felt lonely some to all of the time, and 31% aged 65 and older felt the same. Even though most age sections were rather high, I decided on focusing on the later age groups. This is due to data showing that 44 years and younger struggle with loneliness the least in total. Within this age group, I found that certain problems the bereaved faced, such as dealing with unfamiliar responsibilities and grieving children, which adds more pressure on them. This may extend their grieving process or even make it harder for them to handle, and increasing the probability of emotional isolation. Other problems they seem to face is a lack of sociability, yet they need others around them more than ever at this delicate time in their lives. I found that my secondary research informed me on the problems and the downfalls of loneliness whilst grieving, yet I was missing the crucial information that improves the prevention of this happening. Therefore, my objective for my primary research became to understand the specific behaviours and needs of the lonely bereaved. My methodology was decided through evaluating the sensitivity of the subject. I found that doing any methodology online would be inappropriate and disrespectful. Therefore, I chose interviews to ensure the participant was comfortable. This also created the opportunity of observing their emotions and behaviours in the process of the interview. The location was also thought through by allowing the participant to decide on an environment they were most comfortable with. This included places such as their own homes and cafes. The surroundings were made as comfortable as possible by allowing them to rest on a comfortable chair or even lighting candles. The sensitivity of the subject also made it crucial for me to create a consent form that elaborated on the process of the interview in the use of personal questions. The limitations and ethics I needed to consider from using interviews as my methodology was the possibility of the participant's memory being rather hazy when reflecting from the earlier state of their grieving, due to them experiencing several emotions at the time. This may be due to them not wanting to remember. Even so, if our participant does remember, then they may be likely to get emotional from the harsh memories. They may even ask me to withdraw their statement because of the anxiety of them telling me their personal experiences. I organised 3 individual interviews in total. Each participant's age was included in the top 3 age groups that suffer from loneliness the most. All had suffered from loss in their lives in different ways. Therefore, I managed to collect a range of perspectives, needs, and behaviours. What was brought up a couple times in 2 separate interviews was a need to talk to someone who also knew or had a connection with the person that had passed. Other findings were the struggle to prioritise themselves when grieving, as they felt those suffering the most from the loss needed them more than them. They also struggled to prioritise themselves when there was other people that needed their support. I found that sometimes it's hard to find the right person to talk to, and sometimes it isn't always family they wish to be around, as they don't want to worry them. I also found that almost all participants felt that talking about grief on social media is too personal. If not, they informed me that they understood why the bereaved would do so, but they scroll past it quickly if a post shows up in their feed. Leaving my findings on a positive note, Anne shared how she enjoyed sharing good times with the loved one that they'd lost, as it improved happiness and acceptance. My other key findings from the interviews allowed me to construct the key stages to the grieving process. I wanted to create this grieving journey to key point stages that might be more successful and appropriate to initiate a change in the bereaved behaviours. The first stage is if you have knowledge of the loved one's death approaching, for example, due to severe illness. Some emotional self-preparation can be done at this stage, yet the fear of the unknown life without them is still expected. The second stage is the death of the loved one. This then causes an overbearing amount of emotions and realisation in stage 3, which can leave the bereaved feeling depressed and isolating. In a short amount of time, the funeral is organised for stage 4. Funerals, I found, are not always an event everyone contently attends, yet the purpose allows reflection, respect, and acceptance. The funeral is also the only stage that involves almost everyone that knew the person that passed. This, I feel, would be the perfect time to activate the behavioural change stage. For after this, all stages can go rather negatively if the grieving is not healthily endured. In conclusion, I found that moving forward with life after the loss of the loved one can be a struggle for grievers. An overwhelming amount of emotions are hard to handle when emotionally isolating. An improvement needs to be made on the opportunity to connect the bereaved with the right people and allow them to reflect positively on their loss. I also found that funerals are the key stage to communicate and prompt others to engage in a behavioural change to benefit the bereaved. Thank you for listening.